Journey podcast, where we showcase some of the most inspiring stories in the world. And today I'm super excited because we have a very special guest who's not only a speaker, coach, podcaster, mentor, author of this amazing book, Core. And I know you guys are going to get a tremendous amount of value from her story, from her journey, and the life lessons that came along the way. And without further ado, give it up for the one and only Candice Thibodeaux.
Thank you
Thank you for being on the Journey podcast, Candice.
Thank you, Josh, for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know there's your background is so expansive, and you were actually here in Tampa for a conference.
Yeah.
And you're heavy into speaking. You've been on national television and all of this amazing stuff. And I would love for you to kind of give the audience a background story of like what it is that you do and maybe your childhood and how that ultimately led to what it is that you do today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Candice Thibodeaux. I come from Boston, Massachusetts. I grew up in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and I come from a really rough background, but blessed to say the least. So I started my journey in 2020 during the pandemic. Started journaled my entire life, and started to write my first book, Core, Three Steps to Reshape Your Mind for a Better Future. What I realized is that a big part of my development was mindset. So I had to shift my mind, had to figure that out, did a lot of self-development, introspection, and it helped me want to help more people. So I started to figure out how do I coach people to also shift their mindset. People wanted to start writing their books. How do I help them do that? So then I created Mental Shift University. So that's essentially my journey in a nutshell.
Nice. I love that. Now, in terms of just your background, what was life like for you? I know you mentioned growing up in a tough environment. I grew up, very similar, Brooklyn, New York. And so I can definitely, relate to that. But for you, what was it like for you? Like, did you grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth? Did you have a 2-parent household? Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I did. I have a 2-parent household. My mom is Puerto Rican. My dad is African American.
Nice. I didn't know you were half Puerto Rican.
Yeah, right. And so I did have both parents. My parents are married. My mom was really hardworking, as my dad was, but it was just our neighborhood. So I think when you come from one hood, all hoods.
Absolutely.
And so gun violence, people doing drugs, selling drugs, things like that. And ways that we kept sane was through arts, rapping, basketball. So I used to rap a little bit.
Oh, okay, nice.
So that was one of the way I always
Love it.
was a pencil pusher. So I would write down my raps and write down thoughts and poetry. My mom did poetry as well. So that's how I was able to keep my mind off of burying almost 11 of my friends in one summer.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. And I can also relate to that. I remember in high school, I was a part of a creative writing club.
Yeah.
And I was also witnessing a lot of violence, a lot of just traumatic things that I had saw. And writing definitely was an escape. And this is my first time actually hearing that you were into writing and poetry and just writing rap songs and things like that.
Yeah.
I used to do the same thing. So, you grew up in the hood, especially. I'm not sure if were you born in the 90s or 80s?
89.
Okay, same here. Shout out to all the 80s babies. We believe that we're the best generation.
We do.
But yeah, like if you grew up, and we grew up like freestyle battling on the train. And,
on the buses.
Like roasting,
For sure, yeah.
So no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I know you grew up specifically like in the Boston area.
Yes.
Right? And if you don't mind sharing, what was that like for you growing up in that environment? Like what was some of the things that you kind of witnessed that you feel probably had an effect on you long term? Yeah,
Boston is a beautiful city. I will say that. I don't want to paint the picture that it's not an amazing place, because it is. And we have a lot of privilege compared to most cities. But like I mentioned, ways to escape. We were always in the basketball courts. People were freestyle battling. People were selling drugs. You could see a person who was addicted to drugs right on the corner of your neighborhood. And we knew them. Like, we knew them by name. We were like, hey, I don't want to say the person's name, but we would know them by name. And they were a pivotal part of like our neighborhood. So when you walk down the street, there were liquor stores, there were people fighting. But then we also had double dutch, and we also had basketball, and we also had manhunt, and all the things that we used to do before technology. So that's pretty much how I grew up, and I love where I'm from. I grew up in Roxbury and Dorchester, and there's so many creative people in my neighborhood who also rapped or also did businesses, whether it was legal or illegal.
Of course.
But yeah, I appreciate where I come from because I know for sure it made me who I am.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I know you eventually went off to go to college.
I did.
And was college something that was the standard in your family, or like, I know, like for me, no one in my family had ever gone on to actually pursue a college education, so it was a big deal for me just going to be the first one. But I'm curious as to, for you, like, why did you go off to college, or was your family putting that expectation on you?
It wasn't an expectation. My mother has always been entrepreneurial.
Nice.
My dad always been hardworking. He was a DJ too, so that's where I get most of my music love from. Nice. But my aunt went to college in Atlanta, Georgia, and my mom and everyone's like, the college is the way to go to live a better life. Let's go to college. So I started applying to college because of that. Like, I want a better life. What does that look like? And so, I went to school, Clark Atlanta University, in Atlanta, Georgia. And it did change my life, I would say. My mindset changed there. I learned more about my African-American background.
Of course.
Just how to be more powerful, independent, how to really use my creative resources in a way, and how to be resourceful.
Yeah.
So many talented people on campus as well that really inspired me. It's the first time I would be in a city where I saw a Black woman or a Black man driving a Bentley. It really opened my eyes to say, wow, this is legally, right? This is real. It made me dream bigger. Atlanta is a very special place for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's super inspiring. I went to Atlanta, and I went to, I believe it's Barney's Breakfast. Is that what it's called? And
it is Barney's.
Yeah, so I remember just being there, and the level of high quality service and the product and the aesthetics, the vibe of it. And it was just so refreshing to be in a Black owned business like that and to have such a really great product. And it's super inspiring. Like, I agree, like driving around Atlanta is definitely an incredible place.
Yeah.
And in terms of after school, so what did you go to school to study for in the first place?
I went for political science. So I always wanted to change what my neighborhood was like. I'm like, I want to create programs. I've always thought about how come we didn't learn about financial literacy, or how come we didn't learn about this? And someone told me, I forget who the person was. It's like, it's the politics. So I'm like, oh, then we have to change the politics. So how do I do that? Go to school for political science. But then as I started learning more, I'm like, this is not really what I want to do. Then I got into business administration and said, the way I'm going to change the world is through entrepreneurship, but just didn't know how.
For sure. So what did you end up doing in between, let's just say, college and now the work that you do today with the Mentorship University and your coaching and your speaking and all of that? What was that like in between?
It was a lot of self-discovery. I was when I lived in Atlanta, I had a really good friend. She's doing amazing things in Atlanta. I was her music manager at the time. So I was helping, like, I thought I was going to do big things in the music industry. I love music. Music speaks to me, and I think it is a very powerful tool to impact the masses. So I was like, well, then maybe this is a way that we can help people through music. So I was doing a lot of that, and that self-discovery led to me wanting to personally grow and develop and travel more. And I went into traveling, got a part of a travel business who helped me with personal growth and development. Nice. So they did conferences, they did a lot of like pouring into yourself. And so that's how my journey started, with really self-development.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, who's your favorite artist?
Favorite artist now?
Yeah. And back then.
That's so cool to ask.
I'm a huge hip hop head, by the way. Not the new stuff as much, but like I love the history, and I'm from New York, so obviously we have that pride. And
it's interesting. I would say between Lauryn Hill, which is Lauryn Hill, speaks to me. She's like so bomb. Old Lauren, like
X Factor, that's
yes,
my jam.
Right. And of course Kendrick Lamar. I feel like I was a Kendrick fan before all the buzz, right?
Before everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah,
but before the Drake scandal.
Before the Drake stuff.
Yeah.
I just love Nas, like
oh yeah,
people like that.
One Mic,
yeah, like
classic.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, definitely. For me, it's hard to really appreciate the new music and just the new artists. I've been doing my best. It's just like the relatability. Like sometimes I think when you go to a different generation, it's interesting. I was listening to, I think it was Redman.
Redman, Method Man. My dad loves them.
But Wu-Tang had performed at like a recent, I don't know if it was a Summer Jam concert, but it was like, kind of like a hip hop festival, and they had performed, and they mentioned like it wasn't a really good turnout because there was such a wide gap in the generations, and the people who were in attendance didn't even know the music, a lot of the music. So
I love Fabulous too.
Oh, Fab, yeah.
Fab is my, like, if I'm
he's
gonna
kept
feel,
the swag over the years too.
Jadakiss, those are like those type of rappers too. So I think between that spectrum of,
she said, like, she was a model for a year and a half until she took the pins. Man, that was a good era for sure.
It was.
Yeah.
It was the head bob, right? You can tell our head bop is different.
Yeah, as you could tell, like, hip hop has always been a great love for me, and it's so special, and just the artistry, but also capturing the essence of what it's like to grow up in the ghetto. And I always say that my favorite song to really capture the essence of ghetto living is Ice Cube. Ooh, just waking up in the morning, gotta thank God. And just the storytelling and all of that. And I love poetry for that specific reason, because it can really capture the essence, the emotion, in a way that just other forms of communication can't. And yeah, it's incredible. Now, in terms of journaling, so I know journaling is one of the things that you're a huge proponent of, and you also recommend it with the work that you do. How would you say journaling can be beneficial for, let's just say, someone who's possibly on their healing journey, or maybe they're just working on their personal development? What are the benefits of journaling, and how do you recommend going about journaling?
I love that question, because I think journaling has, like you said, played a huge part. And anytime you write something down, you're able to look at it in the face. So similar to looking into a mirror, a lot of people, Tupac, because we're on he has a quote that says, the reason why I can face myself in the mirror is that I can look directly into my soul and not have a problem with that, right? And I think a lot of times people have a problem with looking at themselves face on. So the way I look at journaling is the same way. Like, I'm going to write down what I'm thinking, whether I'm not going to judge myself. Whether I agree with it or not, write it down. Why am I feeling this? Whether it's jealousy, whether it's I'm sad today, whether it's I'm feeling upset, I'm going to journal it. And a large part of that came from being a rapper, like you said, poetry. It was a way of self-expression. It was a way that we didn't have therapists.
Yeah, for sure.
Mental health wasn't spoken about as freely as it is now.
Yeah.
So for me, journaling was that. It was a way for me to look at my thoughts and say, I don't like how I'm thinking here anymore. How do I change that? I need to program a new thought.
Of course.
What is it that I want to be? What is it that I want to think? Write that down.
Yeah.
I will look at those two thoughts, and that's actually a tool in my book. Yeah. This thought that I have now does not have to be my end all be all.
That's right.
It's not my end game.
That's right.
This new thought it may take me some time to get here, but I'm gonna get here.
Yeah, very true.
What do I have to do to get here? How do I get here? Yeah. Asking those type of questions. So essentially, that's what I talk about in my book: asking yourself the right questions, being authentic on where you are. Being vulnerable without judging yourself, and then knowing that you don't have to stay there forever.
Very true. Very true. I love that. And it's interesting because I actually learned heavily how to go into journaling and the best way to go about it. So when I journal, I don't actually use a book with lines. I use a blank page journal, so that no lines in the journal, so that I can draw if I want to draw. So exactly. Cool. Just bring pictures, because we're so accustomed to just writing like school style, where it's like an essay. But I had learned from Jim Rohn early on that you want to go about journaling in a way where you're not journaling for other people to read it. You're journaling for self-expression. You're journaling to get your emotions on paper and to process what it is that you're going through. And recently, journaling had helped me. A lot of the times too, I go on walks 3 minutes a day, and sometimes I'll take out my phone and just journal while I'm walking. And I have this 5 to Thrive exercise. And it's basically asking yourself 5 questions. And it's an intention setting exercise. And the 5 questions are, what do I want? Why do I want it? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to be or not to be? And how can I make this all a reality?
Yeah.
And sometimes it like we're so caught up in our emotions that we're just there in our heads and just feeling some type of way, but it really, really does help to just put it on paper. And even when you're going through difficult circumstances, like how am I going to figure out this financial challenge? It's so helpful to be able to just write down a plan of action, write down everything, and it reduces the anxiety from my experience.
Yeah, for sure. It does. It makes you like become more creative.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you're looking at a problem, you're like, now I can tap into this creative juice that God gave me to figure out how to solve this problem.
Exactly.
And we learned about like the scientific method in school, but it's a form of having a scientific method for your mind and how to problem solve. And the way to do that is you have to be able to visualize it. Sometimes we can visualize it in our head, but if you have it tangible, first in the mind, then in the hand, you're able to say, oh, I know what this is.
Yep.
Who do I need to help me with this? Maybe I don't have to do this by myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of times you want to tackle financial problems or any type of problem by yourself. Maybe you need a team. Maybe you need a squad. Who can I connect with? And that all happens if you're able to see it visually.
Absolutely. It's interesting. One of the things that I've been finding helpful is asking myself, why am I feeling this way? So, we oftentimes get triggered, and, getting triggered is a result oftentimes of childhood trauma that just was never healed. And when someone brushes up on that emotional or mental wound that you have that was never properly healed or stitched, right? It's like you find yourself being triggered by certain things that probably shouldn't even trigger you. Maybe somebody said something, or maybe you feel a sense of like you can't trust someone, and it's very difficult. But I think we don't really take enough time to process why we're actually feeling that way and try to trace back the root of it. And when I start to trace back the root of it, I oftentimes am led back to my childhood version, right? And when it comes to healing in general, would you say there's anything specifically that you had to heal from or just kind of go on a healing journey for? And I'm curious as to what that was like for you, and what recommendations would you have for people also going through their healing?
I love that you said I asked why, and I feel like you read my book because I touch on that, like asking yourself the hard questions. The reason why I call it the hard questions is because when you're asking that, you're opening up this Pandora's box of feelings or emotions that you probably buried for so many years. And so one of the things that I would say is that I've struggled with like perfectionism, wanting to always get it right, get it how I envision it in my head. And that sometimes provoked procrastination.
Of course.
I wasn't starting to do a task or finishing a task because I wanted it to be perfect. What I realized is that stemmed from my childhood. My mom is a strict one Puerto Rican, and we was washing baseboards at the age of 6. Like everything, everything was.
You wake up, you got the yelling, like why is this?
And I love her. I love her for that because it's one of her gifts. But it's also like, man, that did a number on me. It made me think like I need to make sure that this is perfect because I have to show up a certain way. And it doesn't have to be like that. Life is messy and the process is messy.
Very
Whatever
true.
You're building, especially in creative spaces, it's going to be messy. You see artists in there, painters, their clothes are messy, the walls are messy, but the finished product is beautiful. But it took a moment for them to just get messy.
It's controlled chaos.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that is something that I've been continuously working on. I've gotten better at.
Yeah, that's so good. In terms of just healing in general, if there's any specific advice you would give for people who, let's just say, have to heal from whether it's perfectionism or maybe they're a little bit toxic and their toxicity is due to maybe a single parent household or something like that. They may have daddy issues or whatever the case may be. What would you recommend for people who are just healing from their past? Like what healing modalities, if there's any that come to mind, would you recommend?
Accountability and awareness.
Yeah.
So I think
Absolutely. I love that
toxicity,
answer,
a lot
yeah.
of people are not aware that they're toxic.
So true.
Right? So you
Yep.
have to, if you have a team around you or a spouse or a friend who's saying, hey, that's a little toxic about you,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to be aware to take a pause
Yeah.
and then hold yourself accountable and not be offended
Yeah. Yeah,
by
yeah.
someone who loves you
Yeah.
telling you about yourself. So just being those two things simultaneously, just working those, weaving them in together, and then pausing for a moment to say, how can I get better?
Yeah.
And that takes courage.
Yeah, it
People
does.
don't want to do the work. I'm
Yeah.
not saying all people, but there are people who really are okay with being toxic.
Yeah. No,
They
so true.
really are, and
So true.
that's just their identity.
Yeah.
Right?
I love your answer because I always say that the first step to healing is awareness.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to catch myself because you'll have certain things that trigger you and you're like, man, you know what? My response was a little toxic.
Yes.
And I think we all fall on the spectrum. I mean, do you have those toxic moments?
I do.
Do you have some toxic moments even? and whoever's saying no, they're probably the most toxic.
Right.
And just don't have the awareness.
They're not aware.
Exactly. But we all fall on the spectrum to a certain degree, and it's something that you have to work through. And but in order to really heal from that, you have to have the awareness.
For sure.
And that's why it is good to just talk to people and have friends in your corner to let you know, like, hey, that was wrong.
Yeah.
That was wrong. And this is what I'm saying, because we have blind spots as well. Sometimes we don't really look at us the way the world is necessarily looking at us. And it is good to have that person in your corner that is, there's this saying that I need a corner man, not a yes man.
That part,
right?
For
And
sure.
having someone that's going to help you heal whatever needs to be healed, not just tell you yes all the time, like, yeah, it's okay or whatever. And that's the accountability.
Absolutely.
Part, right?
Yeah. And not only that yes, and I think when people are telling you like this is a problem, the accountability is not, oh, I am like this because of this person and pointing fingers. You have to point it back at yourself.
That's right.
I think that took a big aha moment for me. Talking about toxic moments, right? Where people would tell me like, you navigate in this way. And I'm like, well, that's because, and I'm like, wait, Candace, that's not okay. You're not being accountable right now. Hold that, sit in that, and change that.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. I remember a childhood mentor of mine would say, be careful at pointing fingers at people, because every time you point a finger at someone, you have 3 pointing right back at you. And it's so true. And I love the quote that you will continue to attract what you judge until you no longer judge what you attract.
That's so good.
It's important to also be a person that is doing their best not to be so judgmental of people.
For sure.
Because we all have our process. We're all going through. I was listening to one of your podcast episodes, and you just spoke about being human. And the flesh is a serious thing.
It is.
It's tough to navigate through it, but it's what makes us beautifully human, and we have to be okay with being perfectly imperfect.
That's it.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about the book. So what inspired you to release the book, and what can people expect for those who want to, let's say, read it?
Yeah. What inspired me? I mentioned we were going through the pandemic. Everyone was in the house. People were. I felt it. I could feel people's spirits. I could feel the state of the world.
Like an empath.
Empath. And I'm like, the only way people are gonna push through these feelings is if someone is brave enough to talk about their story.
Yeah, very true.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
I wrote Core. I said, Core 3 steps to reshape your mind. Let's make it really practical. We'll start off with authenticity, that awareness and application of knowledge. Those 3 steps right there will help you start the journey of reshaping your mind, start the journey of really asking yourself the hard questions, start the journey of healing. Just start your journey, whatever it is. Start the journey of entrepreneurship, whatever idea you have. It starts with you first being authentic, then being aware, then applying practical principles in whatever field or wherever destination you're trying to go to. So that's how it started. The book is definitely for anyone who is struggling with that kind of confidence too. I mentioned in my book about imposter syndrome and different things that I struggled with. Just being really vulnerable and sharing stories. I think stories help people. People don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. And what do they care about? They care about themselves. No one really wants to hear about us talking for real, Josh. They want to know, how is this podcast going to help me? What is this episode going to how is it going to fuel me?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that is who the book is for. And I've been hearing great reviews from it. People was like, it changed my life. I see people really going off to do great things from it.
That's incredible.
And it served its purpose.
Absolutely. Make sure y'all pick y'all up a copy
pick
of
up the
Core.
book Core.
Where
better
can they get Core?
Get your book Core.
Where can they find the book?
You can find it at mentalshiftuniversity.com.
Nice. Love it. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about Mental Shift University and how that came to be and what it's all about.
Yeah, so Mental Shift University, I coined the Harvard of personal growth and development.
Love it.
The reason being is because, as I mentioned to you prior to our conversation, is I know that Harvard, Princeton, all these Ivy League institutions never hone in on one particular thing. And for me, it was, I know personal growth and development works. I know that people need knowledge. I want to be the person to help them do that in a way that is tangible, in a way that's affordable, but not where you're charging them $100,000 a year for college, right? So I started Mental Shift University with the idea that it will be a school of thought. It would be a place where people can come and learn anything but from finances, how to write your first book, confidence. So right now I have about 3 courses on there that I started off with.
I love it.
And one mentorship program that helps people actually become an author.
That's incredible. What would you say is the long-term vision with that?
Oh, that's so good. I love what John C. Maxwell does. So if I could have like a John C. Maxwell kind of institution for Mental Shift University where people can come and learn, that's the long term, where we have a building, we have actually people coming in, maybe you come and speak about podcasting or your area of expertise and just have people come learn. I think those places are sometimes hidden in other businesses where they have conferences and people don't really know. But if people know, hey, Mental Shift, I can go and learn and become a better human being overall, the overall well-being, your spiritual well-being, your entrepreneurial well-being, your mental well-being, that is what the long game is for me.
For sure. I love that. I want to dive a little bit into entrepreneurship. So when it comes to just entrepreneurship, I know you specialize a lot in helping entrepreneurs, and you obviously know a lot of entrepreneurs as well and have been an entrepreneur yourself. What recommendation would you give for people who are on the come up and they're looking to get into entrepreneurship? They want to be their own boss. Maybe they're not really sure how to go about it. What would be your recommendation for someone just starting out, and maybe some practical advice, whether it's personal development or just business advice? What would that be?
Yeah, if you're working a 9-to-5, I would say stick to it for a while, because I think a lot of people think, and this is just me being from my experience, there are people who jump the gun and say, I'm absolutely going to jump head first and be an entrepreneur. I just want to highlight that it does cost money to be an entrepreneur.
Very true.
You have to buy the products. You have to buy your way into a room. You have to get your inventory. You have to do your marketing. All of that costs money. So if you have savings, by all means, jump head first. But having that net, I think for me, is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, in addition to like mindset, right? And mentally shifting, like from being a worker to now I'm a whole entrepreneur. Whatever I slay is what I'm going to eat, right? I'm not clocking into a job. I'm not having a weekly paycheck. Where's my money coming from? I have to go out there and hustle. So know that it's not easy, because I think it's very romanticized on social media, like this great thing, and it is. And to be realistic, that it does cost money. It does cost grit. There is sweat equity.
So true.
There are going to be people who probably don't believe in you, and that's okay. But keep going. Because at the end of the day, it's sweet. It's about the people you serve too. If you go into entrepreneurship selfishly, I don't think you'll be successful.
So true.
It is service-based for sure.
Yeah. It's like the Zig Ziglar quote, you help enough people get what they want out of life, you'll have everything you want out of life. And service to the many does lead to greatness. And it is a life of service and sacrifice. And why is entrepreneurship worth it? Why go through all of that?
You are really leaving a mark on humanity. yeah, it's about human beings.
Yeah.
And that makes me emotional.
Yeah.
But it does. It makes you know that at the end of the day, you left this world 1% better.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're selling smoothies.
Yeah.
Health smoothies, you're making somebody's health that much better.
Yeah.
If you're giving someone a haircut,
Mm-hmm.
that person just left your barbershop
Mm-hmm.
feeling so much better.
Yeah.
If you're a wellness person, they're leaving with vitality. If you're selling books, if you're doing Mentorship University, people are leaving 1% better because you decided
Yeah.
to bet on yourself
Yeah.
because you want to serve humanity.
Yeah.
So
that's powerful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And for the entrepreneur that's currently struggling and they're listening to this right now, like that's me. That's me. I'm selling the smoothies. I'm the author. I'm out here and I'm scared and I don't know if it's gonna work out. Like, what encouragement would you give them to just continue pressing on, and what would be your words of advice or encouragement for them?
Oh, that's so good. And I'm going to take it biblical.
Yeah.
For me, because you said the person that's out there that may be like me.
Mm-hmm.
You want to leave a mark where God says, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
Right? That alone should wake you up out your sleep.
Yeah.
That alone should make you say, I got people to serve. I got people to meet. I got things to do. I got a God who is counting on me to use me as a vessel. Yeah. To bring me into spaces where I can really help people. Yeah. To not give up on yourself, because the one thing that we're all going to do is die one day. Yeah. What do you want when you're on your deathbed? Really, and I hate to take it there, but it's the truth. And when you're on your deathbed, you want to sit there and live with no regrets. I emptied the clip. Yep. That's right.
That's right.
I gave it everything that I poured. Mm-hmm. That is what should keep you going. Yeah. It's your why. Mm-hmm. Why am I doing this? Yeah. It's not about us. Yeah. Entrepreneurship is not about you. Mm-hmm. Yes, it should drive you because it's your creativity, but it's about people. Yeah, and when you lead with that, you're going to wake up. You're going to be like, I'm going to book the flight. I'm going to be at the conference. I'm going to connect with the person. I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to speak and cry. I'm going to speak when my voice quivers. That passion alone comes from a deeper seed, which is service.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. I love that. Yeah. I had recently heard in an interview by Jeff Bezos, he was talking about just the path of entrepreneurship. And he says, you can go and live a life of service and adventure, or you can go and live a life of comfort and security. And he said, either one is a viable path, nothing wrong with either one. But he said the question is, when you're 90 years old looking back at your life, which one would you be more proud of? Yeah. And I thought that was spot on right there. Yeah, it was so spot on. You could bring a tray. Yeah, yeah, appreciate that, brother.
Cry, baby. I told you I was gonna cry.
No, I
over the silliest things.
That's the beautiful thing. I mean, that's what we're here for just pure authenticity and vulnerability. Yeah. And even me talking to you, I get goosebumps because the entrepreneurial path is tough, and I'm sure Trey can relate to it as well. You really have to take up your cross with honor and dignity and courage, and you have to continue to press on, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you're scared. And I had talks with my wife about this recently, because sometimes it's a little bit scary. You have people who are depending on you. Yeah. Right? You sacrifice possibly or risk the possibility of being publicly humiliated.
That part.
Or of having, being evicted, foreclosed on, of going bankrupt. Like, that's a major, major risk. Yeah. But on the contrary, the people who subject themselves to working a job that they don't love, that they don't feel purpose in, what are they risking? They're risking their legacy. Yeah. They're risking
their happiness.
A great life for a good life.
Oh, yes.
They're risking the idea. Just think about the fragility of human life. There's a statistic online that says you have a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being alive today. Like, the odds of you being here alive is practically zero. Yeah. But here we are. And you're going to risk that
for something that you hate.
Absolutely.
And it causes stress, and stress is the number one killer.
Absolutely.
And so you bet on yourself because
Yeah.
that you matter. And I think that comes with confidence, which
Yeah.
is why I created the confidence coach course as well, because it takes confidence to do that. It takes courage. It takes grit to say, no matter what, I'm going to do this. People will laugh at you, your big idea that you want to do. You want to go to the moon.
Yeah.
How you can't go to the moon? I've never seen anybody go to the moon. Ha ha ha! They want to go to the moon. They're still building that spaceship 20 years later because they don't see you off ground yet.
That's right. That's right.
That is very much discouraging.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that. The loneliness of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The feeling like, dang, am I crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I think too big?
Mm-hmm.
When you're around so many people who don't think that big, it makes you feel like maybe.
Yeah.
But then you have to again brush it off, shift your mindset. No, I'm made for this. I'm born for this. I'm gonna do it no matter what. Stick to the why. I don't care if I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm crazy for now.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, so true. I love that. And it's interesting because I remember back in the day, you probably started a business and you were a lot more fearful if you're a seasoned entrepreneur in the early days, you're a lot more fearful of rejection, of people judging you or laughing at you. And the more I reflected on it over the years, I started to actually have an appreciation for being the rebel, for being the outlier, the outcast, the black sheep of the family, of being just different, because every great entrepreneur, they're all low-key crazy.
Yeah, crazy. And
a
little something's off.
So when I'm up in people's DMs now, it's like, yeah, I'm that crazy entrepreneur. And it's important to embrace that.
And it's hard, and I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not going to sit here and act like I always had that. Because there are times where I will go after something and I'll be like, I will second guess. I will. And then again, it's like that self-talk.
Yeah.
You have to be feeding yourself constantly. If you can't speak to yourself, you better throw audio on.
That's right.
You better put something in your ears to continue to tell you that this is great, to continue to tell you to keep pushing forward, because your mind will play tricks on you. If you hear enough naysayers, if you're surrounded by them, you will start to naysay yourself.
Yep.
So it's not easy, but it's definitely something that you can do. You work on it. It's a continuous fight, a continuous muscle to be built over and over again. And like you said, seasoned entrepreneurs are able to be like, I don't care. I've done this forever.
Yep.
But someone who's brand new might be like, I'm fearful. I am fearful that I may lose my friends who ain't really my friends because I have to discover that.
That's right.
People don't want to face, are they really for you? Entrepreneurship shows you that.
Business.
It tells you that. It tells you the truth about yourself. It tells you the truth about people around you. It's a mirror. I can tell when I'm on my game, and I can tell when I'm not. When I didn't listen to an audio, when I didn't go to the gym, I see the difference. I see when I'm not consistent with it. I love that we talked about consistency. That is what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
And I started by going to the gym consistently. That's one thing I'm going to do. If you just pick one thing, because it shows.
Yeah,
your lack of consistency shows why you are not bearing the fruit of your labor.
Definitely.
And you can't be mad at anybody but you.
Yeah, very true. And I love what Trey said before we started. He mentioned how consistency usually leads to confidence. And when it comes to confidence, I'm so happy you brought that up, because that is a big part of the journey, is just having the confidence, which is also rooted with faith.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurship does require a certain degree of faith, and not only faith in your creator, but also faith in yourself.
Yeah.
You have to have that faith and confidence in yourself that you will do your part.
Yeah.
And I know for me, what has worked, when I talk to my wife about this, I oftentimes bring up that what has worked for me get through the valleys, what has worked for me just overcome some of the greatest obstacles, has been not only faith in God, but this mentality of, God, I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm going to do my part. I know you're going to do your part. I'm going to show up and do my part.
Yeah, that's so
good.
And
every single time that has come together, I've always gotten through. Every single time. Leaning on God, staying prayed up during those difficult seasons, but also just having that belief in yourself. Because at the end of the day, that's what you can control.
Yeah.
And that's sacred. That's our free will. It's what we have the ability. We have the ability to control our mind. We have the ability to control our actions.
For sure.
And on the topic of faith, I know you're a faith-based person. I'm curious to just hear a little bit about how faith has really come into your life and how it's been a benefit, because personal development, sometimes depending on the teacher, they may exclude that one element.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's the glue
It's
that
the
keeps
glue.
everything
It's
together.
the glue. Oh, I love that question. So I will say I was not always this. People will say, Candace always been like that. But no, I was really very much so a rebel. Like, I didn't want to know nothing about Jesus. I didn't want to know nothing about, I thought it was all a scam. I'm like, this is all causing division. I feel like there's one God and that's it. And for me, that is what I just ran from it. But as I started to personally grow and develop some more, I'm like, hey, that seems like a biblical principle. They got that from the Bible.
Yeah.
Let me read my Bible some more. Let me figure out, let me talk to this God that I've been running from this whole time. And so I grew up in church in Boston, but it was very religious. It was very legalistic. Wear the long dresses, and it was like all this stuff that I really didn't agree with. And I was like, I'm not doing any of that.
For sure.
Sorry, no. But as I, matured, and I would say seriously, 2022, I started really like building my own relationship with God, and really like praying, really figuring out what does this mean in the Bible. Last year was the first time I was actually reading the Bible consistently, and I'm like, oh, there's so much in here that I would quote the Bible. I knew scriptures, but really knowing what that story meant. Really understanding like this is a part of humanity now. Like you said, there are philosophies that from years ago that the Bible carries. There are stories. The Bible has drama in there too that makes you say like, oh, humans were wilding back then. And it makes you really like pay attention and stand on principles that are the key to a firm foundation to anything that you're building.
So true. I love that. So true. I wanted to ask, what has been the most difficult season of your life? And how did you use personal development and faith to sort of dig yourself out of it?
I love that. So I would say last year, I moved to Houston, Texas from Boston, and it was off of faith. I felt the Holy Spirit saying, you got to move. And I'm like, I don't know anybody in Houston. So why am I moving? So I moved, and I thought I was moving because, you listen to God. You're like, I'm moving for this great thing. It was the loneliest, saddest, most depressed time of my life. Like, I was like, I moved here for this. Like, I'm really sad. Like, what's going on? But there was one pivotal moment. I was in my bed, and I was crying out to God, I don't know why am I here? And I could hear voices telling me, you just give up. Just end it. Nobody's going to care anyway. You moved all the way over here by yourself. Give up. And I'm like, that's not my voice. Where's that voice coming from? Started praying, started journaling, started reading my Bible. And then I heard another voice. I'm going to carry you. I got you. You got to trust me. I lost everything. I moved, filled up a truck. The truck never came. Money.
No way.
Had like literally in an apartment, had to rebuild the entire place, my wardrobe, everything. Lost everything. And God was like, because you can't bring old things to new territory. You can't bring your old self into this new place. You can't even bring your old mindset into this new place that I'm taking you. And he showed me that story. I think it was Abraham in the Bible who had to go from different nations, and he tried to bring Lot, his cousin or some Lot with him. And he's like, I didn't tell you to bring that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, but I didn't tell you to bring that with you. You're trying to bring your old self into new places. And so it was really a wake up call for me. It was really like, oh, this is me shedding old skin. This is me shedding old Candace. Like, yes, that's who you used to be. Be proud of that. But who are you becoming?
I love that.
Who are you now? Embrace that. What does that look like? What does this new person love to eat? What do they love to drink? Where do they love to go? How do they like to dress?
That's beautiful.
Who do they like to connect with? That was transformative for me. And I would say last year was the hardest season of my life, but the most profound lesson learned season ever. Like,
I love that, Candice. I'm so happy we brought that up. And it reminds me of the biblical concept, you can't put new wine into old skin. And it's exactly that, right? And it's almost like God was letting you know, hey, you're opening up a new chapter and it's time to let go of all of this old energy, if you will.
Yeah, like you can't bring it.
Yeah,
I was trying to do old things, wear old clothes, even down to the clothes. He's so intentional. He will really orchestrate your life in that way. And so that also strengthened my faith. I'm like, oh yeah, this God character is real. Like he's for real, for real.
For sure.
He doesn't play about us either. He really wants us to do well.
Definitely. So what did you do, if there was anything specific, to really dig yourself out of that valley? Were there any like practical things that you say were beneficial?
I went to the gym.
It does help.
I literally was like, I don't feel I'm gonna go run it out. The voices are saying things, and that sounds crazy, but out loud when I'm saying it. But for real, I was like, I would hear, nope, I'm gonna go to the gym. I don't want to hear that. That's not me. Nope, I'm running it out. I would sweat. I would take bathtubs, like just get in the bathtub, a bubble bath, candles, and just relax. No phones, like off social media. I used to post silly content, dancing around. He's like, no social media, just me and you. And so working out, reading my Bible, and just being to myself. And I just really sat with it. I didn't run from it. And I think that's what's important. If you're going through a hard time, don't run from it. Again, look at it for what it is. It'd be okay, and give yourself grace. I had to learn to give myself a lot of grace.
Yeah. I would agree with all of that. Even just the idea of processing your emotions, not running from them, not bottling them up, not just masking them with other things, or getting caught up in coping mechanisms, retail therapy, and
we're doing this life solo over here.
It is, and it's tough. It's tough, killing essentially the flesh, like starving the flesh, as you oftentimes hear. But it is important to just really process those emotions, because it does manifest itself later on into all kinds of ailments and diseases and tumors and things like that. So
we don't realize it. There was actually a book that someone was telling, I don't know the name of it, but they said like every time you suppress an emotion, depending on what that emotion is, it affects different parts of your organs, different parts of your body. Cancer stems from it, all types of things. I said, oh no, I'm going to release, even down to unforgiveness. I was reading, like, if you don't forgive someone, how you are holding on to that, it could cause disease in your body.
Very true. It's a serious thing, because what people don't realize is when you're stressed, your immune system is compromised, because you don't need your immune system when you're in a state of fight or flight. Back in the day, if you were running from a saber-toothed tiger, then there's no need for your immune system, your adrenal glands, like all of these things are going off, your dopamine, and your body is like spiked at an all-time high for you to be able to fight or flee. And the issue with today's generation is that, a lot of people aren't talking it out. They're not expressing their emotions to anyone. And we live in a world of social media, so people aren't really connecting, getting the oxytocin benefits of that to be able to properly process their emotions. And it creates this long-term state of stress, and your body and autonomic nervous system is just compromised. And you can only imagine, if your immune system is compromised, then you're a lot more susceptible to disease. And that's really what's happening from a biochemical standpoint. And it is important to manage stress. And if there's any advice that you would give in terms of whether it's an entrepreneur or just someone, let's say, who's reading your book on their personal development journey, what recommendation would you give for managing through stress?
That's a good question. I don't think we can manage stress. I think we have to learn to navigate our ease, if that makes sense. So if stress is everywhere, fear is everywhere. So it's like you trying to manage all that can cause stress, right? So for me, it's like, how am I managing my ease? What does that look like? Okay, practically speaking, I'm going to sit here, no phone. It's so simple. And I'm just going to stare at this wall. People may think I'm crazy, but I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to breathe, do breathing exercises, deep breaths in, deep breath out, and just focus on all the flight. You'd be surprised all the thoughts that come to your mind by just sitting in silence, because we don't do that enough. Because we're always connected to our phone, even to the point of bedtime,
So true.
and just sitting there in silence. managing your ease. What does ease look like for you? Maybe it means I'm going to actually take a different route to work than I usually do because all that traffic makes me stressed.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm going to probably set my alarm at this time so I can wake up earlier so I can have a slow morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I'm going to go for a walk at lunchtime and just enjoy the environment.
Yeah.
So it's just managing what your ease looks like.
That's right.
So that way you don't have dis-ease.
Yeah.
Stress management, I think, is complicates it. If you focus on how am I managing stress, you're going to manage stress.
Yeah, very
right?
true.
And you can't do that. This world is insane.
Yeah.
We're inundated with so much coming at us all over the place.
Yeah.
I feel like I watch news from Gaza, news from airplanes crashing. That's a lot. That's stressful.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to manage that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has the capacity to manage that.
I love that answer. I love that answer. I love that you mentioned a lot of things that I also implement, just going outside, getting in nature. I mean, obviously you get serotonin benefits from being out in the sun, but also just the idea of being in silence. I'm big on meditation. So I always believe that prayer is speaking to God, meditation is listening to God.
I love that.
And oftentimes we get caught up in just speaking to God about like treating him like a genie in a bottle, right? Like, all right, God, this is where I'm at. I could really use the bone right now. You know what I'm saying? Like help me. Help me.
That's
right?
selfish.
And I mean, it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, you have your prayer requests and you have to, let it be known what you want, but also taking time to process what God is trying to communicate to you. Because as you mentioned, when you're focused on positivity, two thoughts can't occupy the mind simultaneously. So if you're speaking to God, how can you really take time to listen to God? And we don't really, especially in a lot of faith-based communities, they don't really teach you how to just be in silence.
Yeah.
It's always on like prayer requests and things like that. But I think if people actually took the time to just silence the mind and really, really hear the voice of God, that's when the greatest blessing, comes. And I always say that it isn't until you silence the voice of man that's when you can truly hear the voice of God.
Oh, that's so good.
You have to
Absolutely.
silence the voice of man. And sometimes it's your inner
man
it's
or
your
woman.
Exactly. And it's like you mentioned, those internal voices or thoughts that come about, and we go into this state of self-sabotage, and really you start to discover that the enemy is the inner me. It is that part of you that you're battling with, that's telling you you're not enough, talking about, imposter syndrome and all these things. We spoke a little bit about imposter syndrome too. I'm curious, as we get ready to bring the plane in for a landing here, I wanted you to talk a little bit about just imposter syndrome, especially for people who maybe they aspire to speak on stages around the world, or they want to get into coaching or mentor people, but they're not feeling like they're enough, or they're feeling like a fraud. Well, I don't have the results. What would you recommend for someone navigating through imposter syndrome?
Oh, yes. That is so good, because to this day, doesn't matter what stage I'm in, I want people to know that I still get nervous.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's a part of, because you want to show up in your best way. And I love what you said earlier, because I advocate for that. I always go to God and say, God, I'm going to go into this room. I'm going to bring what I know. But there are things that I don't know. And I'm counting on your divine intervention. Like I'm here to serve your people.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't do this without you. So I always say, if I'm going into a room, God, if you open the door, I'm not going in there by myself. You coming right with me. Right? So that's one. But the other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, is if you go into a room with the service-based mindset in mind, like, what am I here to do? It's not every time I think about it's about me. What am I going to say? How am I going to sound? Am I going to say Am I going to say ah? Am I going to mess up? Am I going to stutter? That gets you nervous. That makes you talk yourself out of doing the thing. The moment that I say, okay, Candace, this opportunity opened up.
Yeah, for sure.
This platform, this stage opened up. What do people need? Who am I going to talk to? Am I going to talk to the younger version of me? Am I going to talk to the person who may be afraid? Who am I here to serve? Your whole atmosphere, how you show up, your stance, your posture, your confidence is different now, because now you're trying to reach the person way out there or way out there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Whoever it is, you're going to show up with that difference. The imposter syndrome will go away.
For sure.
because you're not thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about, if I'm going to say ahs, can'ts, ain'ts.
That's
like,
right. That's right.
I don't care about the grammar. I don't care about those things, because that's not authentic. Yes, there are places where you can't be a certain way, but if they called you to the stage, then you bring you to the stage.
Yeah.
I'm not showing up anymore because I used to. As my not being my authentic self.
Yeah.
I'm just not doing it.
Yeah,
If they want me, they want me.
So true.
Not the me that I'm pretending to be.
So true. So true. And it's also very healing, because I love the quote that authenticity is the highest expression of self-love.
Yeah. Ooh,
and
love that.
it's so important to just be authentically you. And when you're authentically you, it's when you think about it from a self-love standpoint, you're really telling your soul, I'm okay as you are, all of you, and it's important on the healing journey for sure. Now, as we get ready to wrap up, I wanted to just ask you, because you're a mindset strategist, and I'm sure there's a specific mindset that comes to mind when you think about success in general. If there was like a one-page manifesto on how to go about mindset as it pertains to becoming a successful individual, what would you say is the right mindset to have?
Always evolving and growing mindset. So if you are saying, I'm going to grow, what does that look like? Because then you ask yourself the questions that we talked about, the how, the why, the what. For me, it's always asking yourself questions, because that's where discovery and creativity happens. So the growth mindset, I want to grow, and then having that desire to do that is what the one pager would say, as simple as it sounds, because then from there you can do anything.
Yeah. It's so
very
true.
Simple. Yeah.
I was watching a documentary yesterday on this idea of learning, and how we've been so accustomed, our way of going about just skills in the workplace it's outdated, and it's important to embrace this idea that the most valuable skill is no longer a specific skill. The most valuable skill is your ability to learn something fast.
Yeah.
So when you think about it,
because we're fighting with AI too,
exactly.
Right?
And back in the day, you would go to a university for 4 years and you go through this long, arduous process to learn a specific skill. But these days, if you really know how to learn, and one of those things being teaching, obviously, because what you vocalize, you internalize.
Yeah.
And the ability to really adapt and learn something really, really quick is actually far more valuable than someone who spent 4 years on something.
To do it, yeah.
Right? Just to learn that one skill. You can have someone who can learn it in 4 weeks and do the same exact job.
Yeah.
And also, because of that mindset, they can adapt, because we live in a changing world.
Yeah.
And it's always changing.
Yeah.
So it's far more valuable to know how to learn. And that's what I love what you do with your Mental Shift University, because when you think about it, what would someone have paid for the knowledge of launching a book back in the day? What would they have paid for learning how to, let's just say, even launch a podcast?
Yeah.
And these days, if you're resourceful, like you mentioned earlier, you're going to school really made you resourceful. That was probably the greatest gift that you got out of it. Learning how to research, learning how to figure things out. And I think that we do need to put a stronger emphasis specifically on how to learn, and how to learn quick, and how to adapt, because survival of the fittest, a lot of people don't know this. Darwinian theory, when they mentioned survival of the fittest, they actually didn't mean fittest as in strongest or smartest. The word fittest originally meant the most adaptable.
Oh, cool.
So it's survival of the most adaptable. And
that changes everything.
It changes everything when you look at it from that lens. And I love the fact that you're so big on education and people growing, because the most adaptable people in today's marketplace are the ones that are ultimately going to win, when it's all said and done.
I love that. And I love that you said how to learn. And I would even pair that with specialization, because I think because there's so much information now, there's so much happening, it's so much for you to learn. You can learn about writing a book, and then now you're doing nothing because you have analysis paralysis, right? You're like, I don't know what to do. But if you take an area of expertise just for a season and say, this is what I'm going to focus on. Like, I have so many ideas of different courses that I want to do and people that I want to bring, but I know for sure that I need to start somewhere. So I started off with, I'm going to teach people how to write a book. I'm going to teach people how to become confident
For sure.
shift their mindset. Those are the things that I'm
Yeah.
going to focus on.
Yeah.
But mainly write their book.
Of
What does it
course.
take to write your book?
Of
You
course,
need to
of
shift your
course.
mindset.
Yep.
But I'm going to specialize in that for a season. Focus on that. Become the best at that, because then you open yourself up to other opportunities in other areas where you can focus on
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And then you adapt with the learning
For
by
sure.
how to learn. How do I become the best
Exactly.
podcaster?
Exactly.
How do I
Exactly.
become the best speaker? I want to be the best. So I'm going to learn all the things, the AI, the books, the stages, the people I need to connect with. Focus, energy, really capitalizes on your specialization.
For sure.
And people know you for that. And they're like, that's what I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
This person really knows their stuff.
So true. So true.
Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
So good. Now, as we get ready to wrap up, I know you have your book, of course, but if there were like 3 books outside of yours that you would recommend to the audience on their journey through personal development, mindset, what would those 3 books, what are the first 3 books that come to mind?
I love Napoleon Hill, anything Napoleon Hill. One of my favorites is Outwitting the Devil.
So good. Yeah, so good.
The Bible, of course. But aside from the Bible is my number 1. Outwitting the Devil. And I would say, that's so good. The Power, I think it's like The Power of Positive Thinking.
Yep. Yeah. I think that was a Norman Peale.
Peale. Yeah. Norman Peale. Yeah. Those are the 3.
Yeah, those are really good. Yeah, really good options. And if there's any last words of advice that you were to give the audience, like let's just say, God forbid, this was the very last interview you do, what would be that message to the world? We are running out of time. Time is of the essence. We only get one life. Go do it now. Yeah. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Move your feet. People are counting on you to move right now. Don't be afraid. Go out there and get it. Love it. Love it. This has been super special, Candace. It went even much greater than I knew you were going to be amazing, but this was so good. Thank you. You were amazing too. Yeah, so many good questions. I appreciate it. And where can the audience find you if anyone wants to book you for speaking or coaching or even find out more information about Mentorship University? Where can they find you? Yeah, you can find me at www.mentorshipuniversity.com. I'm on all social media platforms at Candace_the plug. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. It's been an amazing episode. You had me crying. I know I was going to cry. I'm such a crybaby. I'm like, Lord, that's one thing I'm trying to still learn to accept about myself. You know what? But it was authentic. It was real. And I'm sure people felt that. And I had to hold back myself because I'm like, man, it's getting John's just like, girl, he went to go get me a tissue. I'm like, this is so good. I appreciate it. Thank you. That is a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the Journey Podcast. Stay tuned for another episode of another inspiring guest, and feel free to like, comment, share, tag, and most certainly look up Candace. You'll be definitely blessed to tune into whatever she has on the internet and all over on other media outlets. So until next time, take care. God bless, guys.